Hello and welcome to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the brand new collaboration between Elite Football Show and All For United. So before we even start, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on the All For United YouTube page, follow All For United on YouTube, and also follow Elite Football Show on YouTube and Elite Football Show on Twitter, because we're going to be doing this collaboration every single week. We're one man down today, unfortunately. Joe isn't here. I think he's on a date or something. So without further ado, I will introduce my amazing cast today. The usuals, Ciaran, Marc, and Pauly. How are you doing today after that fantastic result? I wouldn't say performance was particularly brilliant, but I would say the result was what we expected. Well, 3-0 was a great start. So, yeah, how are you both feeling? I'll start with you, Ciaran. How are you feeling?
Better than how I was feeling after the game of the weekend, I can tell you that much. It's great to win, but at least it wasn't nerves. We didn't have nerves the whole way through, so that was good.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to read out a few comments. Jamie Gretton, hello, mate. Good to see you back. Hope you had a nice evening. Hope you enjoyed the game. And Jax, nice to see you here again as well. Got so much to say. Interesting game and great result. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot to say today. Make sure you get your comments coming in. Make sure you tell us exactly what you think as the boys are talking, because we want as much engagement as possible. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button. The Green Devil, hello, mate. Good to see you as well. Saying hi to the boys. Let's start with you, Marc. Let's go with the starting 11. Look, was it anything that we expected differently? Because I think the only name that really stood out to me, which was a surprise, was Diogo Dalot, someone personally who I think should be playing a lot more than he is. But looking at that starting lineup, it really did highlight how much of a depth issue we've got in the squad, didn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. I think you're absolutely right. Dalot was the only real surprise there. I think my team selection I probably got too wrong. Just giving myself some brownie points there. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised not to see Maguire, but I think, as we've already spoken about before, Maguire and Lindelof are very similar players, and I think if they're alongside Bailly, then they can both do a decent job. I feel that it's a real audition for Bailly tonight, and actually I think he had a good game. So I'd like to see him at the weekend against Spurs with Harry, really. Yeah, Dalot was a surprise. I'm really shocked, actually, because if reports are to go by, he could be on his way out potentially, so I am very surprised by that. The rest of the day, Ighalo expected to start. Obviously, we have Rashford and Pogba that came on, but other than that, yeah, I think it was I won't go into too much information because you ain't asked me that question yet. But no, it was kind of expected, really. I was surprised not to see Harry, I think, as well. But I guess Lindelof needs his game time too.
Yeah, look, I'm going to read out a few comments here, guys. Make sure you get comments in, like the video, and also follow both Elite Football Show and All For United. This is a new collaboration. Green Devil, look, mate, I agree with you here. Anyone else like Dalot? Look, I like Dalot. There was one part in the second half, I think, which kind of said to me why Ollie doesn't pick him, is when he lost his man way too easily. Bailly came across one of those trademark slide tackles. But I'm going to pass over to you, Pauly. Look, a lot of people, I don't want to go too much in the negatives, but I think we do need to assess the negatives first before we talk about the positives. And there were some negatives. The result was excellent in the end, but I don't think that performance in the first half was good enough. And what I will say is that Ighalo really isn't at the level required, is he? If you're not going to play the Martials and Rashfords of the world, he really struggled. And while I love the fact that he has a great attitude, he's a United fan. I'm a United fan. I'm not playing for United, and that shouldn't be the criteria for playing at Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. The club expected to challenge for the top honours, so we need to really upgrade Ighalo, don't you? And it makes sense why we are seeing reports of Cavani and Jovic.
Yeah, I was very skeptical about renewing Ighalo's loan move when it happened. We shouldn't be expecting him to be anywhere close to the level of Rashford and Martial. You have to remember, we brought him in as an extremely short-term option. Rashford was hurt. Martial was our only forward. Greenwood at that point had started like 2 or 3 Premier League games. So basically you only had, Dan James in January had been run into a wall and was becoming useless. So you needed someone. You couldn't throw Martial out there in every Premier League game, FA Cup game, Europa League game. You just couldn't do it. So they needed someone to come in and just eat minutes. And Odion Ighalo, not good enough for the Premier League. but probably good enough to face lower level teams in the FA Cup and definitely good enough to face teams in the Europa League. And that's what they got him for. And when he scored 4 goals, that was wildly successful. I mean, we talk about Henrik Larsson. Henrik Larsson scored 3 goals. So at the time when we went into lockdown, my thing was, should we be renewing Odion Ighalo? If we don't qualify for the Champions League, then it's worth it because you could play him in the Europa League and that is his level. But if we do, where does he fit? Can you rotate him in against, a pot 3 or a pot 4 Champions League opponent? I don't know. And we're just seeing it now every time he gets his chance. And yes, he's got the great attitude, although I think his attitude is kind of soured a bit. We know that Solskjaer got a little mad at him at the end of last season in the West Ham match because he wasn't preparing himself adequately to go in the game. So he didn't. I thought he linked up fine. I thought United struggled to get the ball into the final third. Nobody really made an impression. None of their attackers made an impression there because by the time United's buildup was so slow that by the time they got it there, Brighton were already fully back and, ready to play against them, which makes their job difficult. But, they didn't take the chances when they presented themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I probably wouldn't have extended Ighalo's loan, but the decision was made. But the problem is that he will play a lot this year with the amount of games we have. And I just don't think that he's someone you can rely on in the long term. I hope we see Greenwood move there if we get a winger. I'm going to read out a comment from Sanjay.
He was very good with the lead, though. Like what he did against City when he came on, even for the last minute and held up the ball and did that against Chelsea too. And that's a great use for him. You'd like to see him do it for more than 4 minutes because,
that's the problem, though, isn't it?
Right. I mean, could Solskjaer go to him in the 80th minute and have him do that for 10 minutes so that Martial doesn't have to play 90 minutes, or doesn't have to play 89 minutes? If you could get that out of him, then that's a good use.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm going to pass on to Ciaran quickly, but look, the way I see it is when I looked at the restart and when we played a lot of games, there's a lot of people saying that Ollie's not using his bench well enough. And I think you look at the bench, we saw that today with the team that we put out. The depth is a real issue. 1 or 2 injuries, I tweeted, and we're going to be in serious trouble. And you'll have a lot of these players playing. What Pauly said in return to that was, yes, but these players will be playing with obviously the first team players, the better players. I agree with that. But a lot of these players probably aren't good enough. And when you do look at Ighalo, I don't want to go in too hard on him because, again, he worked hard today. But you need more at Man United, even as a backup number 9. In 99, when we won the treble, we had four strikers. And you can't say that Ighalo is even on the level of Teddy Sheringham. Teddy Sheringham was a very good player, but Teddy Sheringham was, 3rd or 4th choice with Solskjaer? They're all a step above, and that's the problem. Ighalo, yes, it goes Martial, Greenwood, possibly Rashford, but Ighalo, he's not at that level even to be good enough, I think, for a backup at United.
Yeah. You want me to go on that one?
Yeah, you.
Okay, I was like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we can say it as many times, but he wasn't the choice for Ollie to come in anyway. So I think timing probably has not helped the situation because the original plan was for him to come in from January until the summer. But with the way that the coronavirus happened, we had to extend it. Otherwise, if we got a rash of injuries up front, then we were going to be in trouble for the final few games of the season. So it was one of those that had to be done. But look, we can say everything about Ighalo. He's worked hard and you can never say he doesn't try. But at the end of the day, Solskjaer wanted Haaland. He wanted Josh King before he was going to go in for Ighalo. It was really kind of the last resort that we had to bring someone in because at the time that he came in, Rashford was injured and I'm pretty sure Martial just picked up a slight injury and people weren't sure if he was going to be able to come back within that week, and only having Greenwood as a striking option would have been a real issue. So having Ighalo even come in, even when it was in the Europa League games, where I know the first leg against Lasky played very well, but it was just to kind of ease that bit of pressure. So I think the initial reason why he came in, okay, it makes sense. And then I think timing is probably the reason why his loan got extended. But it's no surprise that the club are looking at other backup options, and you won't see Ighalo at United past January anyway.
It
well
should
said.
be added.
One sec, Pauly. I'm just going to read out a comment because from Sanjay again. Thanks for all your comments. Look, I'm going to read out everyone's comments, even whether I agree with them or not, because I think it's important everyone has their voice heard. But you said here, we are Man United. The fact that this type of analysis is done after a League Cup game versus Brighton is worrying. I remember when we never used to even blink before, during, and after these types of fixtures. Look, mate, to be brutally honest, whether we like it or not, we aren't the best side in the country anymore. We're in the situation we're in because of years of bad decisions and bad decisions, chopping and changing the manager. So we can say, yes, we're Man United, but at the end of the day, we played the same side. Maybe, obviously, they had a stronger side out and we got absolutely dominated. So it's important to have perspective as well on how we played. Look, it wasn't a stellar performance, but also there's positives to pick up from. It's our third game or fourth game of the season. It's about match fitness as well. To win 3-0 and to improve that step and that confidence towards the game against the weekend, I think is great. I'm not saying it's the greatest victory ever, but let's move on. Pauly, I'm going to come to you first.
I just want to say real quick, finding a backup striker is not easy in any way, shape, or form in today's game. Like when you brought up Sheringham and Solskjaer, we were playing a 4-4-2. We had 4 strikers and we'd put any 2 of them out there. Nowadays, you look at the problems that Tottenham are having, it's because to find a backup striker is basically like asking somebody to be the second choice goalkeeper. You're not going to get a game here and there, which is probably why Solskjaer wanted a Josh King who can play, across the front in other positions also. And you look at everywhere else, City have the luxury of riches, but they only have 2 strikers, Aguero and Jesus. Liverpool, if Firmino goes down, who's coming in? Divock Origi? Like, is that a good option? Chelsea right now only have Chelsea have Olivier Giroud, who's probably the best backup striker in the league. But anybody else, if their striker goes down, who are you bringing in? And I mean, to respond to the last comment, we're a weekly show Wednesday night. There just happened to be a League Cup game before this.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I'm going to go to Mark. We're talking about centre-back pairing, guys. So there's some great comments here. Malumwe, hello, mate. Nice to see you here. Thanks for your comment. Eric Bailly, by far our best centre-back. Maguire doesn't start for the first team of the season, and we keep a clean sheet. I'm not laughing at the comment. I'm actually laughing because I agree with you. Make of that what you will. Look, okay, before I come to you, Mark, my biggest problem, and I'm not going to bash Maguire for his price tag, but when you see Paul Pogba consistently getting bashed for his price tag, I think you've got to have the same energy towards Maguire. When you think £80 million player, obviously we didn't choose to have his price tag, but we spent so much on a player, and yes, statistically we improved, we are a better side. But when you spend that much on a player with that many flaws to his game, his pace, I think his positional awareness is off. It's a real worry, and the problem is that Ollie's made him captain now. And when I looked this evening at the centre-back pairing of Lindelof and Bailly, I thought they were solid today. It's Brighton, yes, it's a League Cup game, but you know what? I felt much more confident seeing Bailly next to one of, let's say, Lindelof, who's a bit slower, but that recovery pace was brilliant today. Bailly looked like his old self. Now, the problem is that Maguire's not going to get dropped, is he? Do you think that, one, Bailly's the best option next to him, and 2, do you think that making Maguire captain was a mistake by Ollie in the long term?
I don't think it was a mistake. As you rightly said, when you spend 80 million on a player, you absolutely have to start them. Now, I think this could be a positive for tonight in the fact that if Harry is injured or unfit or whatever, then we do have someone that can play in Lindelof. We've said this so many times over the last few months that both Harry and Lindelof both need a quick centre back, and that shone through tonight really. Bailly had a very good game. You're absolutely right. He looked like his old self, and I just really hope that he can keep fit. He looked solid. He looked quick. He's our best one-on-one defender, and we need that defender to be able to wrap up anything that might get beyond Lindelof and Harry really. So I really, it's up to Ollie ultimately, and perhaps Ollie's probably seen some positives from tonight, and it could well mean, probably another story. It could well mean that Harry may lose his place. I doubt it, but it's certainly given us another option now. Do you know what I mean? You might not agree with me, but this is what.
I agree with you. Look, I'm going to read out Wilson's comment. Thank you for your comments, mate. Bailly was scary, superb at the back tonight. He complimented Lindelof excellently. Exactly. Look, you actually got to think about it. Jose Mourinho brought both of these players in to play with each other. Like they do complement each other. Look, Lindelof has, again, flaws to his game.
And yet after a year, he was like, no, I need a new one.
Yeah, no, I need a new one. Which you wanted to bring Maguire in. So the question is, did you want to bring Maguire next to Bailly or Lindelof? Defensive manager. Anyway, I don't want to go into that. But the Brown Knight, hello, mate. You've put a comment in here. When Oli made Maguire captain, he was the best choice in that dressing room. That change on Bruno arrived. It was not a mistake, but that ship has sailed. Look, that's a very fair point. Look, I do think that I'm saying this more in hindsight, that now you're looking at Bruno and the impact he's had, both leadership-wise. He's more of the voice on the pitch. You could say, yeah, in hindsight, he was probably not the right decision.
But all the things that Bruno, that you're quoting Bruno about.
Is he the right choice? I don't. No, if I'm honest with Harry, does he ever really? I don't ever see him being really vocal.
It depends it depends. You need several leaders in the squad, right? This is what United had in abundance during Fergie's winning years. You looked over, obviously, let's say Vidic was captain, but you also had Rio, you had Evra, you had Paul Scholes, you had Giggs. There was captains all the way through the pitch, and United lacked that. They've lacked that personality and leadership on the pitch. So it's good to have these options. But when I'm talking about Maguire as captain, it's not
from everything I heard though, and speaking to people inside the dressing room, that they actually said that, when we say, oh, this is Bruno's team, and Bruno from day one came in and he was the leader, they said that was what Maguire did. And people, he got the armband for the first time in a League Cup match in October. But someone has said to me, this was Maguire's team from September. By the time it was September, it was clear this was Maguire's team in that dressing room. He was the leader. He had grasped that. And I think that made it easy for Solskjaer to give him the armband. I just want to ask you one question, Haider, because you touched on it. When you just said Mourinho wanted to buy Maguire, and did he do that to partner Bailly or Lindelof? That's a fair question, because we don't really know what Solskjaer's plan was, because Bailly got hurt in preseason last year. Maybe his plan was to buy Maguire to partner Eric Bailly. We don't know that, and it was just a matter of Lindelof. By the time Bailly came back, Lindelof was the established player, and he never wanted to break up that dichotomy.
Yeah, I've got a comment here from the Green Devil. No problem with Maguire being captain at all for me. Good choice. Bruno being captain would be too much too soon. Look, my thing with Maguire being captain is not to do with his leadership qualities. I think it's evident he is the leader. He doesn't have to be the one that screams and shouts all the time and barks his orders. It could be by the way that you present yourself, the way that you show, I guess, lead by example. But my thing with Maguire is that you've made him captain. He's an £80 million player. If he's playing badly, can you drop him? And that's the thing. That's the question I'm asking to the listeners. So put it in the comments. But I think that the way Maguire is playing, he's not playing any better than Lindelof. They both played poorly. I think Bailly, when he is fit, does elevate himself to the best centre back. So the question is, who plays next to him? But I'm going to pass it on to Ciaran here. Do you agree with that sort of notion, or do you expect Maguire and Bailly to play together when Bailly's fit?
Look, it's hard to say, because you have to look at the actions of Oli, and even when Bailly has been fit, he's still gone with Maguire and Lindelof. So for some reason, he likes that partnership. Now, the one thing that I think people kind of get wrong about Maguire, because it's kind of this recency bias, but I think people forget just how bad our defense was the year before Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka came in. We saw Bailly, we saw Jones, we saw Smalling, we saw Lindelof. Like I've said it a million times, a lot of our players before couldn't defend one-on-one. Yes, look, Maguire's problem is his pace. But other than that, he does structure the back line a lot better than most of our other centre-backs. The problem that I have with Bailly playing with Lindelof is that, yes, when things are going good, it's great because Bailly is athletic and he kind of mixes with Lindelof. But neither one of them is a leader. They're individual defenders that are great, but unless you have somebody with them that can actually work together, it doesn't matter. So that's why Maguire is there, because, as you said, you don't have to be a shouter on the pitch to be the captain. You can lead by example. There's plenty of examples of this in all different types of sports. The difference we had under Fergie is, like you said, Haider, is even though when the likes of Roy Keane was captain of the club, there was so many other players in that team that acted like a captain would act. You don't have to be the official captain. Like, for example, what was it when Antonio Valencia was a captain, wasn't even playing? that it did.
Yeah, you can be the club captain. You know, there's a lot of cases where there's the club captain and the captain that plays every week.
Exactly. There's players on the pitch like everybody's saying Bruno needs to be captain. Look, as long as he's acting like a captain on the pitch, I don't care if he has that title as captain, because he's using those qualities and he's helping the team. So,
and the armband is like an ambassadorial role.
Yeah, it's like when people would say, "Oh, it's crazy that a goalkeeper can be captain." Well, if all the players look up to that player, then why not? You see all these stories of some of the young kids coming through from the youth academy, and the player that's actually bringing them into the squad to kind of, even on social gatherings before COVID, was Harry Maguire. He was the one that was bringing them with the rest of the squad. So he has had a big impact in the squad that we don't see on a day-to-day basis because we're not there. All we can judge is what happens on the pitch. And yes, we have probably 2 or 3 players that you see that have captain qualities, but obviously people are going to gravitate towards Bruno because of how successful he's been. But I think people are again, it's like I said, it's recency bias. I think people don't realize how good Maguire was for the majority of the season, and they're just seeing that he's been caught out because of his pace in kind of recent weeks and months. But I think some people probably need to go back and look at how bad our defense was before Maguire came in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Last thing I'm going to say on this, guys, make sure you get your comments in. There's some really great comments. If you agree and disagree, I want to read as many out as possible. But we're going to talk about the midfield axis in a second. But my last word on this is not so much Maguire being captain. It's the fact that because he's been given the captaincy, because of his price tag, what I worry about is actually if he's playing worse, then he's not the one going to be dropped. But anyway, we've got a good problem to have. Bailly's playing well, and Lindelof had a good game today, so Ollie's got options going into the weekend. Pauly, I'm going to come to you first. Let's talk about this Fred and McTominay axis, because you had a lot to say on Twitter about it, and this might cause a few debates. Look, I thought Fred had a decent game, but the problem is, and I think he's the better player out of the two. I've never been so high on McTominay, as I just think that perhaps people are overlooking his technical ability for the fact he's a local lad. I mean, it's great. I love having local lads from the academy, but I think that he's got some serious flaws to his game. He's not quite a 6 because he hasn't got the positional awareness, and he's not quite an 8 because he hasn't got the attacking, incisive passing, I don't think. But he has got a good eye for goal, fantastic header today. Look, that Fred and McTominay axis was not working for me because there was not enough. There was too much sideways passing. There was not enough incisiveness, whether it's because of the tactical plan that was set out, whether it's because of their ability. I mean, talk to me about this axis and why you don't want to see this again.
We've seen it so many times, and it's the same thing every time. This is what we saw against Norwich in the FA Cup last year. This is what we saw against Tottenham in the first game after the restart. This is what we saw against Bournemouth and Newcastle and Everton and Watford. In all these games, it's sideways passing. It's just sideways passing and more sideways passing. One of the comment you have right up, Fred's passing, though, 90% straight to the opposition, because Fred's the only one that tries to pass forward. McTominay passes safe. He passes to Fred, or he passes to Lindelof, or he passes to Maguire. And it just doesn't get you anywhere. And it becomes this labored buildup. And that's why we struggle to break down these defensive teams, because we don't play fast. And I can't imagine that it's a tactical thing, because it's the only midfield pair that does this. So it would be so weird for me to think that when Ollie names his team and it's Matic and Pogba, or it's Matic and McTominay, or it's Matic and Fred, and he says, whoever I'm putting out there, play this way. But as soon as he goes to Matic, as soon as he goes to McTominay and Fred, he goes, oh, you know what, guys, just play safe and play sideways passes. And today, like, McTominay just left him isolated. Fred was sitting as the deeper one. And too often when we got the ball, McTominay would just run forward. And it wasn't like he was dropping in between defenders to give your center backs or Fred an outlet. He's just it's like he was finding a blue shirt to mark. And he's just sitting on these 2 blue shirts the whole game, not open, further up the pitch, so that Fred has the whole midfield to himself, so that if a turnover happens, he's got to clean up the mess. But this is just what happens over and over again. When these 2 guys play, we have seen this happen over and over. United don't score goals from open play. They scored 2 of their goals were from set pieces today. The other one came after some changes were made. What ends up happening is Bruno or today Van de Beek or Mata have to drop deep into the midfield to try to progress the ball. But if they come deep, then there's fewer people up front to pass to. We just keep seeing this, and it just keeps playing out the same way over and over and over again, and I'm tired of it.
Absolutely. One sec, Mark. I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm just going to read out this comment from Jacob. Hello, mate. Nice to see you here again. The passes were on. Fred just couldn't connect often enough. James is not good enough for this club. Rushes everything nervous. I thought, look, I think that I agree with the comment about Dan James. He's not ready. He needs to loan. Will he ever be ready? That's the question. But, you could see him go to Leeds and he'd probably be quite a good player there. What I will say, though, about Dan James is he was not as bad as everyone was saying he was today. He played in his favoured position on the left. Yes, okay, that's the bar pretty low. But he had a decent game. He was quite instrumental for the Ighalo miss in terms of the run he made. He looked better on the left. But what I will say is, Santosh Murali, thank you for your comment, mate. This is a great comment here. I'm going to pass it on to you, Mark. I think the verticality, is that a word? Verticality, is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. You've just coined it. Verticality in the game, as well as a speedy passing, was missing in the game today. Hopefully that will improve soon. That's my issue. Now, let's be completely frank here, Mark. Yes, we've won 3-0. Yes, we're talking about some of the positives, but we were very slow again in the build-up. The build-up is too lethargic, and you can put that down to match fitness. You can put that down to not playing enough. But this isn't something that happens, every few games. This is something that we see a lot. We start slow. We're very lethargic in our build-up. Is that something that you're a bit concerned about going into the season?
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about match fitness, haven't we? And actually, I think they looked a lot better this week. I know obviously we were a bit slow in the first half, but second half we seemed to press a lot more. I absolutely agree with what you're saying with the double pivot. I don't know whether Ollie sees or views McTominay slightly different and potentially as a defensive midfielder when really we're not really sure whether he's good defensively or going forward. But yeah, I mean, it is a concern. I think we just need to get, we said the other night that a few more games, maybe 3 weeks down the line, then perhaps we might see a little bit of, run of form and a bit of consistency. But we do need to start games stronger and quicker. We need to start as we mean to go on, really. And we seem to sort of build into games late on. And by that point, it's either too late or, we look a little bit more knackered. So it is a concern. Hopefully things will get a bit better as the week goes on. But it's a difficult one. Again, with McTominay, I don't know whether... It's nice to have academy graduates, but I really don't know, like you've all said, where he sits. And I think Fred is technically far better. And Matic, he can't play 2 games every week, but he's our best defensive midfielder by an absolute mile. And it worries me about McTominay and what we do with him, really.
Yeah, I'm going to read that comment here before I come to you, Ciaran. Guys, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I know it's shameless, but subscribe to All For United, subscribe to EFS Media. This is a new collaboration. We'll be doing Red Devils Talk every single Wednesday. If there's no game, we'll be doing it at 7:30. If there's a game, we'll be doing it this time. So put it in your diaries if that's what people have these days, or I don't know, your calendar in Apple, whatever it is. But Sonka, thank you for your comment, mate. We need a good defensive midfielder that can start the build-up. Ciaran, there's this debate, isn't it, going on, whether we should go for someone a bit more mobile, which would allow perhaps Pogba to go further forward, perhaps someone like an Ndidi. But then when you're spending 80-odd million on Ndidi, because what's going to happen is Leicester are going to fleece us like they fleece everyone. You're paying for a player whose passing, for me, is not good enough in that position. I think United, for me, the perfect person was Thiago. Sorry, Pauly. I know he's in a retirement home right now. He's over 30. But for me,
not that 30 yet. He's got another good year in him. Got another good year.
Not with the coronavirus, he doesn't.
Yeah, no.
But what I'm going to say,
he's at risk.
What I'm going to say is that. So Abdul's got some good comments here. Horizontal passes, sideways equals sideways passes. Verticality, it is a word apparently, equals forward breaking line passes. We didn't see enough verticality today. That was my problem. And to be honest,
we never do with this pivot. We never do.
Yeah, this is the point I was going to say to Ciaran, is that playing them Fred and McTominay together is not going to work, is it, when you want to break teams down? But also, how are United going to move forward in the future if Matic can play once a week? I mean, for me, Fred automatically takes that position if Matic isn't playing in the defensive midfielder position. There were talks. We spoke to Phil Brown yesterday. He was saying that they want to play Pogba there because Van de Beek will want to play. We'll go on to Van de Beek in a second. But McTominay can't play there. But when you spend 50 million on Fred, That's a lot of money, and I like Fred a lot, but I don't think you're seeing a £50 million footballer in Fred, are you?
No, you're not seeing it yet, but you can tell that once Matic does go out, Fred's the next man up, because you saw it against Sevilla where he trusted him enough. And to be fair, I think Fred played quite well that day. The issue is, and everybody's going to keep going on, is that people have this idea that we need another Matic-style, big-bodied defensive midfielder. But when you look at some of the center midfielders, they're not all, or the defensive midfielders, they're not all in the build of Ndidi or Matic. You look at someone like even the likes of N'Golo Kante, and that's even the style of, or we were talking about Thiago, that kind of, and I always say the kind of quarterback defensive midfielder that can help. So it's not always the center backs trying to start.
Michael Carrick-esque. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. So like, look, if there was a player that was on the market right now that was reasonable that we could get, I've just mentioned him. N'Golo Kante was always one player that I wanted to get at United, because the thing that he does, I think, better than Fred is that he's always in the right position to break up play, but also he has that kind of ability to go a little bit forward. And the problem I see with Fred is Fred looks like he's a good passer, but like we said, it's always side to side. You never really see him doing excellent kind of penetrative passes where you're trying to push up the field. The difference, and just to go back on a point that you mentioned earlier, is why when we're attacking with kind of this backup team is it's so slow. Well, the reason is, comparing it to the first team, is when that ball goes into Bruno, what happens? We start to see the
look forward. Always looks forward. Yeah.
And that's the difference. Right now we don't see that. And just
another big difference is Bruno and Pogba will pass the ball to, they don't, they'll bypass the next man and they'll go two men down, or they'll put it in the air. It seems like every pass that Fred and McTominay make is on the ground, and they'll spot Luke Shaw pushing up on the left wing, but then the pass comes and it's just rolling out to him and he's got to stop and wait for it.
Yeah, but the other problem was when other players see your two central midfielders do that, that kind of makes other players do it. There was one time that really annoyed me.
Not making runs.
Was when Brandon Williams got the ball on the left wing. And instead of playing a ball forward, I think Dan James went past the defence. And instead of playing a ball up there, he played it centrally into a space where McTominay was close to, but wasn't in that space. They lost the ball, and then we were counter-attacked by Brighton. There's too many times we see it going from side to side, and a lot of them are aimless passes, or it keeps going back to the defense, who then pass it from one wing back to the other. And that's where you see the difference. And it was the same thing with Luton, and it's the same thing today when you saw the likes of Pogba come on, that you have someone that's actually wanting to push the ball forward and not just play the simple pass. It was one thing that a lot of fans used to say bad about, I think it was Tom Cleverley when he played with Michael Carrick, that he kept playing it from side to side while Carrick was the one trying to play those passes in behind. We don't have enough central midfielders that do that right now. That's why Van de Beek was brought in. And it's a reason why I always get kind of aggravated when people say, why did we bring him in? Well, because you need more quality in central midfield.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna read out this comment. There's a lot of debate about whether Matic is better than Fred. Look, as a defensive midfielder, I think Matic is one of the best in the league, and I'm going to put my colours to that mask, because I think when you look at Nemanja Matic, he completely shuts down the theory that you have to be quick and you have to be agile. He's very, very good positionally. Yeah. And that's what I want to see from my defensive midfielder. He's also a very good passer of the ball, very underrated aspect of his game, which people don't pick up on. So it depends on where United want to go. I've seen people saying, I agree with this notion. I'm going to come to you quickly, Ciaran, then we've got to move on. Yeah. But there's this notion that if we get a defensive midfielder with much more energy and tenacity in midfield, like a Kante, then you could play like I said, Pogba further forward, and you maybe would not have to invest in the centre back. Maybe the centre back pairing is looking poor because you've got the three slowest players on the pitch when you're playing a high line in the middle of the park, and anyone with a little bit of pace is just going to absolutely kill it. Jacob, You don't need to shut up, mate. You completely entitled to your opinion that you don't think Matic is as good as Fred. That's completely fine, mate. You're great in the comments. I love it when you listen. So just keep on doing your thing.
I have a question. When you guys talk about N'Golo Kante, you're talking about like 3 years ago N'Golo Kante, right?
Yeah, not now.
But
right now it's even worse than Thiago.
He's managed by Frank Lampard, though. So
yeah, that's true.
But his speed is down. His injuries are up. Like it's just like as if a player who ran around nonstop for years is starting to get tired.
Also, he plays his best, guys. Also, one sec, he plays his best in a double pivot when you play with Matic and when you play with the double pivot with Pogba. He's not someone that I think that can play in the single pivot. But look, let's move on, guys. I'm going to start with you, Pauly, on this. Van der Beek and Mata. They're building a beautiful understanding, I think. I know it's a couple of games in, but look, you can tell that Van der Beek's heads and shoulders above any other player on that pitch in terms of footballing IQ. He's so smart. His off-the-ball movement is phenomenal. Every time I was watching, I watched him a lot today, just him specifically, because I'm not really sure I like him that far up as a number 10. I think maybe he has some qualities playing a bit further back, but he was fantastic. And the amount of times, as you said, Fred McTominay would have the ball, he'd make a clever run, he'd be free in space, but they wouldn't be able to make the pass. One, probably because they can't make the pass, and two, it's a confidence in keeping it simple. But him and Mata, especially, the goal for Mata's goal was the layoff for Mata's goal was fantastic, wasn't it? Absolutely beautiful. And this is something which United have lacked. And we've said this many times on my podcast, but Juan Mata is the player that's probably been hard done the most out of any player during the last 7 years at Man United, during this era. He's one of the cleverest players. He came to United as one of the best players in the league, obviously falling out Mourinho. But we've wasted him playing him on the wing, and we've done it time and time again. Tonight we played him on the wing. I know it worked, but talk to me about that growing understanding between Juan Mata and Van der Beek. And for me, Juan Mata, you keep him over Lingard, you keep him over Pereira, you keep him over Dan James, because that mind, you can't teach that. Your legs might go, but that mind is so special. He's got so much footballing acumen, more than anyone else in the squad, I would say.
Yeah, I think at this point, it's a lost cause about getting him to play as the number 10. He's going to be out on that right wing no matter what. But he doesn't play like a right winger. He plays like a wide 10, and he's constantly moving inside and moving to the middle. His goal, you saw him. He came from the inside. He dribbled to the middle, passed it out wide, and then ran straight up the middle. So you give him that freedom. In order for it to work, you need other players. Someone needs to fill in that spot on the right side. Someone needs to get out of the middle and be like, well, Mata's in the middle now, so I'm going to go take up that space on the right. And when we play with the second team, we just don't see that. And Mata at this point, he's a cup guy. That's probably, Solskjaer told him that when he signed his new extension last year. And that's why we saw him, he's basically the first name on the team sheet in any cup match. The League Cup, the Europa League, he thrived in them, but he didn't do anything in the Premier League. He had 2 assists against Norwich, and that was it. He came on as a sub a lot of times and failed to make an impact. Is that because he had played 90 minutes the previous Thursday? Maybe. But we also just failed to see him get that understanding because no one is at that wavelength with him. And we saw it against Bruges last year in the first leg. We looked terrible. Then Bruno came on for the last 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the understanding between him and Mata was next level, and we looked like we should have gone on and won that game. So, yeah, you're seeing that now when you put him with Van der Beek. Like, Van der Beek and Mata are going to win us a lot of cup games. You just have to get them the ball, and that's where it comes down. Like, you need another midfielder so that you could pair Fred with someone who can get the ball from point A to point B, which is, it doesn't matter if it's Mata or Van der Beek, because the two are so clever. And then, if you had a third player with them, because Dan James, has the speed and everything, he doesn't have the brain yet. Maybe he never will. But we saw when Pogba came on, and all of a sudden it was Rashford, and then the next 3 behind him were Van de Beek, Pogba, and Mata in any 3 configuration you wanted. And suddenly we looked like an attacking team, and suddenly we looked fun. Like, it's not just the gap in quality. It's the gap in brain power that all of a sudden makes Mata an even better player and Van de Beek an even better player, because if they see that run and put the ball there and no one makes the run, it doesn't make them look good, even though they saw the right thing. Or if they make the run and no one could pick out that ball. But if you put all 3 of them together and they're seeing that, you're going to play some beautiful football.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come to you, Mark. Some great comments about Van der Beek. Johan van Angeren. I hope I'm saying your name right, mate. Thank you for commenting today. Hope you enjoyed the game. Van der Beek has the touch. Don't read that out of context, but he learned from his master, Bergkamp. Look, Mark, Van der Beek is someone who, as Pauly said, obviously, I know Pauly doesn't think this, but he's saying obviously Van der Beek will play in the cup games quite a lot with Mata. They'll win us a lot of games, but Van der Beek is good enough to start, isn't he? I mean, would you be tempted to be starting him against Spurs, perhaps in the midfield with Bruno? And you could probably argue with Matic, maybe. We'll talk about Pogba later because I thought he was brilliant when he came on, but Van der Beek deserves a start now, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've been saying this for weeks. He's a real breath of fresh air, quite honestly. You can see that he's got that brain from Ajax, quick passing, finding the pockets. And as opposed to McTominay and Fred tonight, he was always looking to push forward. And obviously you were talking about that earlier. We need to be able to be on the front foot and push forward. And he epitomises that, really. He's always running forward, always looking to run into spaces and trying to get a pass coming through to him. I said this about Mata as well the other week. I think he's a bit unfortunate, really, because obviously he's not as quick as he used to be, but as I've said, and you said rightly so, his IQ is unbelievable. And when you want to play differently, and even tonight, he can do great things. Obviously he got the assist, and he had that great link-up play with Van der Beek, and I feel that he should maybe have more opportunities when it's not working for us playing the 4-2-3-1 with the players that we expect to start every week. Mata doesn't really get a look in, and I feel that he probably should have a look in, because I think he gives a sort of different dimension and can give us a little sort of another outlet into trying to push for a goal. But I thought those two were wonderful tonight, and Van der Beek, I've said this from the very beginning, he should start. I think Pogba, I was surprised that he came on, to be honest, but he actually did very well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. What I will say, Usman Shabir, I don't know. That's really random. Does he look like he's from Ohio? I mean, do they have a certain look? I think he's from New York, aren't you, Pauly?
Yeah, I've been to Ohio once in my life.
Oh, that's probably where he saw you. No, look, I completely agree. I think Van der Beek's impressive. Marcus Lothiemann, I think I said that right. Hopefully I did. Van der Beek symbolizes Ajax in Dutch football, the ability to play in different positions comfortably. He played in DM in his younger days. Yeah, he did. I've done a few podcasts about Van der Beek with these boys. And he's very competent across the three, but I'd be probably a bit concerned to play him in defensive midfield in a big game, because I just think with that defense behind you, like, look, if you had Upamecano behind you, I think I'd be okay with it. Someone who's good on one-on-one tackling, but it's definitely something I think Ollie eventually will go for a Bruno, Van der Beek, Pogba midfield, and that's on him to decide how that works. But
you don't need to play them in. You don't need to play them like that in big games. I mean, one of our best performances of the season last year was against City at home, and you got Matic and Fred were in there. I'd more like to see it against the weaker teams where we need the extra firepower. Having Matic is totally fine in a big game. In fact, you'd want him there. You said before, you kind of put words in my mouth about Van der Beek and getting to start. Yes, he is good enough to start, and he deserves to start. And the fact that he's not is a good thing. That just shows that we're adding quality into the team. There should be every week, Solskjaer should have a dilemma of, should I pick this guy, or who am I picking? It shouldn't just be I only have 11 choices I only have 11 guys to choose from. We have to rotate them in, but there's Champions League matches coming up, so it's not just going to be Van der Beek playing with the likes of Dan James and Jesse Lingard and Odion Igalo. In a month, you're going to see Pogba and Bruno start to play. Most of the guys playing 2 weeks or twice a week, but Solskjaer finding a way to rest, one or two here or there. So if he doesn't play in the Premier League, he's going to be playing in the Champions League. That's not a step down. If he doesn't play in the Champions League, he's going to be playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, it's some fair points. Look, where Jacobs put something here, Bruno's defensive mid, no, not at all. Look, for me, and I've spoken to a few, definitely. He's got better attacking abilities going forward, I think, defensively. He can tackle, but we've seen against Brighton, he gave away a penalty. But Reese has got a comment here before I go on. Hello, Reese, mate. Nice to see you here. I know you've been in the comments. I haven't been able to click on your comment. But Van der Beek played brilliantly as number 10 tonight, but I played Pogba ahead of him, Van der Beek with Bruno. Look, I'm going to talk to you, Ciaran, about Pogba. I think Van der Beek has been playing very well, and I think he was probably unlucky not to get more time on the pitch the other day against Brighton. But this is what we want, isn't it? We want to be saying every week, you know, look, I think Van der Beek should maybe start instead of Pogba. This is nothing against Pogba, by the way. This is look, all the time we had this idea, didn't we, last season, where, oh no, like who's going to play instead of Pogba or Bruno, etc. Now we've actually got a dilemma, and Ollie's got a dilemma to say, okay, well, Van der Beek's pushing really hard. He's playing consistently. Every time he's played, he's affected the game. His movement's excellent. His spatial awareness is excellent. Paul Pogba's looked a bit off. You know, obviously he's had COVID, and I've had discussions with people on Twitter saying that's not an excuse. Well, actually, I think it's scientific. Yeah, you've just had a disease that's obviously stopped the whole. Well, anyway, I don't want to go into. I'm not a scientist, whatever. But
in terms
my
of
point
excuses,
is that
it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in terms, what I want to say to you, Ciaran, is Pogba came on today. He looked sharp, didn't he? There's not many players that can take the ball deep, hold player off, turn a player, and carry it with such power, such directness, but also so technically gifted. And obviously, he scored that goal, which was fantastic. But he played further up the pitch, and we've been saying this, haven't we, for a long time in this podcast? We want to see Pogba further up. Now, Pogba can play deep. You've seen it, and when he plays for France, he is a bit deeper in that double pivot with Kante. But looking at him, the way he played today, he also made a really good run. I think Jacob mentioned in the comments, he made an excellent run in the box and went for that header. And we saw some of Pogba's best football when Ollie first came in, making those runs into the box. Now, Ollie's got a really difficult, I guess, decision to make, because you've got Bruno, who seemingly is undroppable. I think Bruno's actually the one in the side who Ollie won't drop. Now, Bruno hasn't played well, I don't think, probably for the first 2-3 games, and he didn't play that well near the end. Tiredness affected him. But
he can do something.
How would you be lining up with this midfield? Yeah, how would you be lining up with that midfield
against Spurs?
Yeah,
or in general against Spurs.
Yeah.
So against Spurs, I think because of the way the game's going to go, I would actually start it with. I'd probably have Matic as the defensive mid to provide that balance into the team. But I'd actually start it with Van der Beek and Bruno come at the start, because what you're going to see is that it's going to be very high intensity in that first half. And if Pogba is a little bit laboured, like we saw he was against Brighton in the Premier League, that can be where Tottenham can catch us. If you have Van der Beek starting, he has a very high work rate, and also playing alongside Matic, I think that could work. And then as the game goes on, like we saw in a couple of months ago when we played against Spurs, you can bring Pogba on, whatever it is, the 50, 60th minute, and he can be the difference in you winning the game. But that's the good thing about having all these options, is that you can pick your midfield based on who you're playing, what your game plan is going to be early on, and what you might want to do to change it. So that's the thing. It's kind of like what Pauly was saying, is that you can pick your team based on basically what game you're going to play, what style of game you're expecting. So like when we say, can the three kind of Bruno, Pogba and Van der Beek play together? Yeah, of course they can. But it's probably not wise doing it early on, because again, if they're all playing together and let's say it's still 0-0, you could easily get caught out on a break against a team like Brighton or Crystal Palace, where if you go down early against those teams, it's a lot harder to win the game. But let's say you're winning 1-0 and you're going in for kind of the second or third goal. Having those three on the pitch at the same time, we've had it so many times last season where the last 20 minutes of the game, it's literally been like 80 or 90% of the possession, because we're just attacking. When something like that happens, there's no reason why they cannot play together. It's the same reason that there's times when Fred is the right option to be brought in instead of Matic. There's a time when you might want McTominay in there as well. But having all these options isn't a bad thing. It means that you can kind of tailor your midfield to your opponent. That's what I always say, is if you're only playing your first 11 and that's the only team that's playing, you're going to kind of run your players into the ground. But also then it makes it a lot easier for opponents to kind of study the way you're going to play. But if you have many different options and many different combinations, they don't know how you're going to play in one game to the next. And that's what Ferguson did excellently, is that even though he had kind of his nucleus of players, he did shift it around a little bit so that when there was a change, it wasn't as easy for opponents to kind of know what the team were going to do. So that's what I think is really important. So for me, like I said, I'd start with Van de Beek just because I think it's going to be very high intensity in that first half. And then later on in the game, I'd bring Pogba on to try and kind of seal the game. Or if we're still in with, let's say we're 1-0 up, or if it's a draw, he might be the perfect player to bring on to kind of do exactly what he did against Spurs the first time, win a penalty for us again.
Can't see him.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic point. I'm going to read out Chucky's comment because it's a fantastic comment. I think we all agree with it. Well, I know I agree with this. You guys probably do as well. The current formation is just a crutch for not sorting out the back line. Fix the back line, and unleash the football team is capable of playing. That's probably the best comment tonight, mate. Fantastic. Well said. I agree. As Reece said, 16 in the chat. We've actually got 25 in the chat. Guys, this isn't EFS Media. It's my podcast, and it's also a collaboration with All For United. Obviously, we're on All For United's page. Make sure you follow both. You can see the @ handle under on the sort of banner that's going across. Follow both pages, both accounts. We're going to be doing this every single week, collaborating and having some more great content. What I will say, the last point I will probably make on the midfield is that we've got options, and that's the first time in years for me that we've got options. We're finally not seeing Lingard being the first player that comes on. We're not seeing Pereira, but it's not even in the squads anymore, is he? Obviously, he's off to Lazio. So it's fantastic. Guys, we might talk about transfer at the end. 5 minutes. Yeah, for 5 minutes. So if you've got any questions regarding transfers, I can chuck to the boys. I will do that. We've got this new segment on the podcast. I'm going to give everyone 1 minute to talk about the positives and negatives. If they go over the 1 minute limit, I'll mute their mic. And I'll go to the next person. So it's quite fun. Let's start with Pauly because he likes the waffle here and there. Talk to me about the positives and negatives of today's game and go.
The positives were simple. You went out there, you took care of business against Brighton, you're into the quarterfinals. Cup competitions are not easy. There's randomness that you can get knocked out, and it's important to progress and get the results you needed to get. The biggest positive, Paul Pogba came back on and looked like Paul Pogba. And that's just, we've been talking about it, the COVID and how he's been off the pace. He was terrible on Saturday. And he came back and just looked like himself, which is what you need. Just get those minutes under your belt, and we can roll with that.
Mate, that 20 seconds left. That is pretty good.
You started giving me the time. You came to me too quick. I couldn't get a timer up. I don't really have any negatives other than that midfield pivot.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, let's go. Something different, not the same as Pauly, but give me some of your positives and give me your negatives. 1 minute, go.
I think keeping a clean sheet and having a steady back line tonight was a big positive for me. I think, as we've already touched upon with By having a decent game, hopefully he can stay fit, and hopefully that's going to be what happens going forward until the next injury. So that was a big positive for me. I think it's always nice to have a clean sheet. We always look a bit shaky at the moment, and we didn't tonight so much. I think we did quite well. A negative for me, Igalo. You touched about it. I touched upon it earlier, and I wanted to have an input, but I think the honeymoon period for him is over. And whilst he came in and did very well, I don't think he's quite United standard, and maybe that's why they're looking at another striker, perhaps. Done.
Oh, fantastic. Green Devil, I'm going to read out your comment because I know you posted about 4 times. I'm not ignoring you, mate. I'm just a bit dyslexic when it comes to multitasking. I think I'm doing an all right job, though. But just throwing this out there, but I think it's a shame Ollie didn't surround himself with more experienced, astute tactical coaches like Sir Alex. Sir Alex was a master at changing things up and moving with the times, and he used to change his number 2 regularly. He had Steve McLaren, obviously Brian Kidd back in the day. Carlos Queiroz was excellent. So is Rennie Mullenstein, and he also had Mickey Phelan. I would agree. I do. Look, it's difficult for me to say, but I do question what McKenna's very highly rated, but what his input is. I'm not saying Carrick's not a good input, but he would do very well to bring someone in, a fantastic number 2 who could help him tactically, because I think that's the area of the game where he needs to improve. I think he's got his man management on point.
Hire a set piece coach.
Yeah, that as well. Well, I think Chelsea could hire a new coach that would help them. But look, I'm going to read out a few of the comments. Brown Knight, positives. Dino, Bai, and Mata. Dino especially, we didn't even mention him. Maybe Ciaran will mention him. We're getting some love, guys, as well from Marcus. Great show, guys. Who's NS Mark from Twitter? Oh, nice one, mate. Thank you for listening today. We'll read out a few others. Reese, a positive highlighted. We do not need a mobile CDM, and we need a left for sure. Negative, agree with Mark. Igalo, non-existent. Yeah, Igalo disappointed me, and I think you're right. The honeymoon period is over. Jacob, tenacity from Fred and Scott, although careless on the ball too often. By Matter, Van der Beek, Hendo. Few negatives. Sorry, Ciaran, I'm going to read them all out, and before it comes to you, you'll be like, what am I going to say for a minute? But Chucky, again, negative, we're short of wingers. James looks like a dullard with any ideas. On the same pitch with Matter and Van der Beek. Yeah, I agree. James is out of his depth. Needs a loan. Brown Knight, last one. Negatives. Lindelof. Burn was... Oh, Dan Burn. I thought I said Bum for some reason. Was twice Matter size. Of course you could only...
You haven't exactly been painting yourself great with the reading in the last 2 minutes.
Hey, honestly, like it's late here, isn't it? It's nearly 11 o'clock. It's my bedtime. Ciaran, I'm going to give you a minute. That was quite funny when Matter burned Burn. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah. But go on, Ciaran. I'm going to give you a minute now. Talk to me about your positives and negatives and go.
Okay, my negatives is that everybody just stole a lot of my ideas, so I'm just going to go straight to my first one. And I think Dean Henderson had an excellent game again. When called upon, makes an excellent save. And there's no way in hell I'm going to praise the lot because I think he's a terrible player, but that's just my opinion. My second one positive would be the second half performance. I know you don't like that, Haider, but I don't care. And then the third one, I can't remember what I was going to say, but I think I think when Pogba coming on, just seeing that we're a lot more kind of, I think, ready compared to the last couple of weeks, and that's kind of the main positives that I've taken out of the game, because everything else I think has been said already.
Yeah, fantastic. You're under the time, just about, actually, to be fair. You waffled on a bit, mate. You need to learn how to be a bit more concise with your points. But no, I'm kidding. Look, guys, we've got a few minutes here. We've got 5 minutes. We're going to talk about a few transfer rumors. James agrees with you, Ciaran, about Dallo stanging on his big chance. Mate, I don't understand the hate towards Dallo, but I also don't understand.
He can't defend and can't attack.
Yeah, he's bad. He's a bad footballer.
We have Fosu Mensah playing instead.
Also, bad
whatever anyone says, Dallo is streets ahead of Fosu Mensah.
Dallo doesn't play Ollie's style, and Fosu Mensah at least does. You could tell that he has listened to what Ollie wants him to do. Dallo has not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Guys, transfers. We're going to talk about a few transfers. Mark, I'm going to come to you. And yeah, I agree with Brown Knight here. Cheers, mate. You're on my wavelength. Dallo hasn't played for months, cutting some slack. I agree with that. But no, well, we talked about match fitness, didn't we? We were saying how match fitness was affecting the players, and obviously Pauly liked to say that.
It's not like he was injured.
I think it's only fair to say with Dallo.
Yeah, but it's not like he was injured. He just wasn't getting picked because he didn't.
Dallo is always injured, mate. That's the problem.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Okay, conversation for another time. We're going to do it. Yeah. We'll do it next week.
He's a bad footballer.
Anyway, Mark, I'm going to come to you first. We're seeing Dembele rumours come quite thick and fast the last couple of days. Look, would you take him? Because you look at his injury record. Muscular injuries are a big, big no-no, because when you look at the muscular injuries, you look at how reoccurring they are, and you look at Michael Owen and people like, for example, Fernando Torres, they get those injuries, they lose their pace, and it just affects them. So is he someone that you would be taking, says Sancho? I don't want to go too much into Sancho because I'm bored to death of the situation. But if Dembele was to come in on loan, would you take that?
Based on his injury record, no. I think he's a good player. As close as you're probably going to get to Jadon, but not quite, if you know what I mean. But basically, we have a problem with our injuries all the time. We've said this even during Fergie's reign. Injuries were always an issue, and if we are looking at bringing someone in on loan, probably high wages, with maybe an obligation to buy that could be a huge amount of money. I think it could be a huge risk. And I honestly believe, I said today, that I feel it's probably a smoke screen, to be honest. We did this with Bruno and Harry, and I feel that it's a smoke screen. But based on his injury, no. I think, and you know, in all honesty, the Premier League is probably a little bit tougher than the Spanish League. And if he's having muscular issues now, is that going to be helped being in the Premier League? Probably not.
Yeah, fair points. I think the injury record is so concerning. If there's an obligation to buy, United would be really stupid to do that. I'm of the view of Sarr as well. If you don't get him,
you know who else has a bad injury record?
Don't say Phil Jones.
No, you know who else has a bad injury record? I'm just not going to say names. It's someone that we didn't sign and currently is COVID.
Don't say Thiago. Don't say Thiago. All right, you're going to get muted for the whole thing if you mention Thiago.
Bad injury record.
Anyway, so moving forward, and Santos has said here, Fab just confirmed Dembele has doubts staying at Barca. Look, I spoke to a Barcelona journalist the other day, and he said he doesn't think it's going to happen. It's his dream club, Barcelona. It'd be something very unlikely. But Wilson said here as well, I just think it's United trying to force Dortmund's hand. They've got him with one bid. United know if they put the money down. This is what I want to say to you, Ciaran. I mean, Wilson said here, Dembele is a terrible deal, very terrible. He's like all our terrible deals mashed up into one. It'd be like Do Maria. I'm thinking Di Maria and Jones had the baby. I mean, I don't know if it'd be that bad because I think, look, if Dembele can keep fit, I mean, he was once touted to be as high up there with Mbappe. I know injuries haven't been kind to him. But look, Ciaran, when we look at the Sancho deal and Fabrizio, I don't know if he's changed his tune or if he's changed the goalpost. I don't know what it is, but this is the way I read the situation. And I'll go to Pauly for the last word on this after you. But the way I read the situation is that United were given a deadline of 10th of August, and Dortmund said, we need 120 million. Obviously, that would be an installment. But since that deadline passed, which United didn't think was serious, now Dortmund is saying, yes, 120 million, but we need that up front. Am I reading that correctly? Because when I read that today, I thought, wait, mate, this is so different to what Fabrizio was saying earlier on in the window. I'm not saying Fabrizio has been wrong because there's different sides of different sources. You have some from the agent, some from the club, some from the player. But Fabrizio has been I don't think he's been very straight up at all in the whole Sancho saga because he was saying personal terms are not a problem. They've been agreed. But we were told by the British media and other sections of the media that personal terms and the agent fees were a problem. So I feel like Fabrizio's been leaking out a little bit of Man United news to keep us, because United's clicks, right? We know this.
Yeah.
United, as soon as he talks about United, the United fans go mental, that Twitter just blows up. So do you think that he's been a little bit weird on this and he hasn't really been clear?
Look, I think the thing with Fabrizio is he gets his information from agents. So it's well known that's where he gets most of his information from. What you saw it change, and he's been tweeting the same thing about the 120 million. They want that up front ever since it hit past that deadline. So it seems like Dortmund are just trying to become the powerful force here, saying that we can dictate everything that's going to happen. I tweeted out earlier is that if they're saying that you have to pay 120 million euros up front, regardless of if it's this season when the pandemic's going on, no club's going to be able to pay that. Maybe you see PSG, they're the only ones that usually will do that, but Madrid don't have money, Barcelona don't have money, Liverpool don't have money, like to that extent. So if they're going to keep doing that, nobody's going to be able to afford that next season either, because this pandemic is not going away. So teams are going to actually have less money next year to spend than they do now. So you might see where the player will, right now he's being a good soldier, that he might get a little bit aggravated with the way it's happening, because there's still reports out there that he wants to join the club. It's well known that he's not going to hand in a transfer request because he loses out on millions of euro in bonuses because of that. So financially, it doesn't make any sense. But if United came in with an offer that reached the 120 million and Dortmund said no, that's when they're going to have an issue with Jadon Sancho, I think. Because going into kind of these Dembele rumors, I think there is some legs into it. I think to a certain extent, it is trying to push Dortmund as well to kind of accept the deal, but also that United can't just have it going into the last few days where Dortmund are just going to reject. They have to have some kind of backup plan. If it's Dembele, I was against it when it was a 60 million upfront and pay for him, because then you have the risks with injuries and everything, and you're kind of on the books for him. But if you have him on loan with an option to buy, you basically have that year to see how he can get on in the Premier League. And if it's not that great, well, then he goes back to Barcelona, and if you have the money, you go and spend it on Sancho. If he's excellent with the team, well, then you probably have saved money and still gotten an excellent winger. So I know people are saying because he's gotten injuries, and I worry about muscle injuries as well, but I worry more about not having someone that can play in that right wing. And right now he's available, and there's not that many right wingers out there that you can say can come in and start straight away for the team. So I don't think it's as bad as what we're saying. Obviously, it's a big downgrade from Sancho, though.
Yeah, the thing is, look, I'm going to give Pauly the last word on this, but there's a few things here, and Chucky said here that we've known the fee with Dortmund, and that's the thing. Everyone knows that United have the money for Sancho, but they don't want to put too much up front because that will obviously stunt their other deals. People are questioning why they're lowballing Porto so badly. There's two reasons here. One, because he's going to be free in January. Whether you like that or not, these are businessmen, and they think, why would you pay 20 million euros now when you can get the same person for free? They also forget that they won't have him for another, 6 months or whatever. But the second thing as well is that United want to buy Sancho. They can't put too much down unless players go out the door. That's why it was imperative that we had the likes of Smalling leave. We had Lingard out the door, Dalot, not only just the wages, but we needed money coming in, and that was critical. United's wage bill is over 300 million. So the point is here, Pauly, I'm going to pose it to you. No Sancho, as Jacob says here, Sancho is crucial. He's absolutely crucial. He's our top target. We've had a free run at him all summer. I know you said it's going to happen. There's obviously talks about Samuel Luckhurst saying if it's after the 30th of September, these, accounting-wise, you can push it a bit later on. That has some legs. We spoke to Phil yesterday, and Phil was saying he doesn't know about that, but he said that doesn't. They would have probably come to an agreement, wouldn't they? United would have said, okay, we'll sign Sancho for this amount. This is the installments. And what we'll do is it will be activated after the 30th of September because this is when it's going to be posted in the finances. But at the end of the day, mate, if United don't get Sancho, even if they get Dembele, even if they got Sarr, even if they got Upamecano, that's a massive, massive failure when he's been your top target and you've been chasing him with no one else after him. For me, the effect on the club's reputation is huge. And for me, that tells everyone, we know this already, but it tells everyone that we are not serious. We're a joke. As the Green Devil says, the businessmen aren't showing their respect. If we had proper football people in charge, they'd know the behaviors of German clubs, understand why they need a replacement too. No, I honestly think that Dortmund are being serious. Dortmund said, this is the deadline, pay up. They're not going to go and sell their best player on the final day and scramble around and try and pay the money for Sarr, who they're apparently interested in.
Yeah, they will. If they got the money, they will. Dortmund are an incredibly run club. First of all, they've been planning for life without Jadon Sancho for a year now. They promoted Gio Reyna to the first team in January. Post-lockdown, Jadon Sancho didn't start against any clubs, in any games against teams from the top half of the table. Those all went to Gio Reyna, or Gio Reyna was originally supposed to be in the team for the derby, but had to withdraw from an injury. They still didn't go to Sancho. They went to Julian Brandt instead. So Sancho, the only games he played in last year were at post-lockdown were against the bottom feeders of the table, which was because we're integrating our squad for next year if we don't plan on having you here. They are also very efficient. So if they know that Sarr is the guy that they want if they lose Sancho, they've already done their due diligence on him right now. And this is the club. They, unlike us, they can move really quickly and get players in no time at all, which everything happens much quicker on deadline day to begin with. So if it's October 4th and we sign Sancho, things just happen to happen. Things just have a way of happening over the last 24 hours at a rate that doesn't happen before that. But this is the club last year, 2018-19. The season ended. The transfer window hasn't even opened. It's 3 days after the season. They announced 5 new signings. Dorgan Hazard, Julian Brandt, a couple other players. If they want to get a player in, they'll get him in. But they're also a kind of club that replaces internally. It's similar to Solskjaer last year when Lukaku left. He was like, yeah, like let's look at replacements, and if the absolute right one is available, we'll make a move for it. But I'm not worried. I'm not too worried about it because we have Mason Greenwood. Borussia Dortmund are the same kind of club. When it comes down to it, like, why are we waiting so far? This is going. The only thing that we've gotten wrong so far from what we've been talking about since August, we've agreed on a lot of things regarding this. The only thing we've gotten wrong has been the timeline. I thought they'd actually get this thing done before the season started, and they have not. They completely took a dump right in my face about this. Whatever.
Mate, I can hear you getting very, very nervous because you've been saying for a long time. So I'm just laughing at James's comment about Prince Charles and the Queen. Yeah, mate, she's ancient. Like he's old as well. I mean, he could pop up before her.
The Queen is waiting for.
You want to be king all your life.
I don't know as much about the royal family as you guys do, but like from our side of the ocean, it seems.
You know more than me. I don't give a shit.
It seems like the Queen is just waiting for Charles to go, and once he goes, she'll be like, "I've had a good life. Goodbye. I just didn't want him to be king." But
absolutely. The last thing to say though,
Dortmund want that full fee. They want, but that's them being the macho men. Like they're not. If they accept less than that with 3 weeks to go in the window, that looks bad on them. But now we're seeing Sancho didn't travel with the team to Berlin today to Munich for the Super Cup. And, there was the reports that it was basically, he basically has COVID, but doesn't have COVID. And then today the reports were coming out that said, no, he's trying to push a move through. That's what they've been waiting for, because like Ciaran said, like if you have your best player who doesn't want to be here and starts to make a stink about it, and then all of a sudden, if United say, well, we don't have 120 million because of the pandemic, like Dortmund have to come down on that price because they need to get rid of him. And they need to get rid of him because your best player doesn't want to be here. But also something Ciaran tweeted today was, if I'm a young kid and they price me out of a move, I'm not going to want to go to Dortmund, if they come after me, if I fear that they're going to price me out of a move. So they will have to come down. And if they do come down on that, then good for United. Their plan actually worked. They waited. They got the better deal. If he does hand in that transfer request and they come down and they end up coming down from 120 million to 100 million, United will be happy to make up the difference for Sancho, for whatever money Sancho forfeited. They're happy to make up the difference regardless. It's just a matter of getting the PR win that we didn't spend that full asking price that they wanted.
At least Sancho's coming up with a better excuse than Harry Maguire did when he was sick.
He just called out of work that day.
Remember what Madison tweeted about it?
What did he say?
No, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Go on,
he had a problem going to the bathroom, I think.
Oh, like an Eric Dyer. He had an Eric Dyer.
Yeah, an Eric Dyer situation, apparently.
But guys, look, this is the end. I'm just going to read out a few last comments. The Green Devil, they didn't want to get Sancho 3 months ago. It saves about 4 million on the wages. They won't have to start paying him till October. Yeah, look, there's a lot of these intricacies to Sancho's contract that we don't know about. Obviously, the loyalty bonus as well. If Sancho doesn't put in a transfer request, and he'll get, I think it's 1.5 million, euros. I don't know if that's correct, but something in a large amount. You would think that that would get made up by United financially. But let's read Reese's comment as well. He's agreeing about his relationship with City left. Yeah. And the last one by Chucky. You've been doing some great comments. Everyone's doing some great comments, but Chucky, you've had a few absolute blinders. So I'm going to read this out. They'd accept more upfront money, less than structured payments under 120. They quoted, United still trying to be thrifty. Paul bet on the wrong cheap idiots. I'm guessing Paul is Pauly. Everyone calls you Paul. You don't look like a Paul, mate.
No, I can't say all people call it Paul. Especially when it says my name on the bottom, like as Pauly.
His name is like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe to EFF and AFU.
Absolutely. Guys, look, make sure you subscribe to the Elite Football Show and All For United, both channels, because we've both got great content and we're going to be doing this every single week, this collaboration. This has been a great show tonight. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll be doing this time every single week after Champions League games. And we'll also be doing this without Champions League games on the Wednesday, probably around 7:30. So make sure you give everyone here a follow as well. Give All For United a follow. Give Elite Football Show a follow. The @handle is @EFS_media, as you can see across the bottom. Thank you very much for all your comments again. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you next time.